This is a post-trade analysis of the 200 pip GJ trade that I took last week, and that entry was given out on GBP JPY weekly outlook with fundamental and technical breakdown. So let's see exactly how did I take this trade. We're going to go from higher time frames down to lower time frames, identifying the levels that we did in the video. So on the yearly time frame, we have the all-time lows being created all the way down here at 119,300. So this is an overall zone. It could be 119,200, 300, 400, 500, any of those. What I personally look at when I'm marking my support resistance levels is exactly where the candles are closing, because that's what's telling me whether there's enough bullish momentum, bearish momentum. The wicks are just telling me that there's rejection. So I pay attention to those when I'm looking for entries, but when marking support resistance levels, that's how I know that if a level is strong or not. If there's a lot of wick rejections, for example here, where the candles have been closing above this level, but there's a lot of wick rejections to the downside, but the rejections just tell me that there was a lot of seller pressure, but when the candles closed, then that tells me that there still isn't enough pressure in order for price to continue and close bearish below this level. So this would be another significant level. This is where price consolidated on the yearly time frame, collecting orders, trying to push bullish. And then we have a minor level that price is approaching at the moment and even rejecting that 152,300 level, which I will make red. So when we drop down to lower time frames and we see that price is approaching 152,300, we know that that is an important level, the yearly level. So we want to be careful around that zone right about here. So this resistance zone is where we want to be careful. So even this year, candle already pushed up, rejecting that level. So on higher time frames, when price starts to reject a strong support or resistance levels, I'm looking on, especially on the yearly, quarterly, monthly, or weekly time frames, that I'm looking for a swing opportunity that would be a retracement of this push up in order for price to correct this entire bullish momentum. And so I'm taking that little pull down or that retracement that price is going to make in order to collect enough momentum in order to continue back bullish. So that's how the 200 pips were taken in this example here. Also, we have this entire zone that's being created down here where necessarily, even with the coronavirus and the economy shutting down, price doesn't really come back down to retest the 119,300 level. If anything, it comes back and taps into the zone, grabs some volume, and then still closing above this minor level that we see right here of 139,900 or 140. So price is pretty much consolidating in this zone. So when we drop down to the quarterly time frame, we see that price has made that resistance. This level also serves as a consolidation resistance level for all of this right here. You also have support being formed, support right here as well, and then price pushes bullish above 139,900 or 140 level. Again, that is a zone as well. Still rejecting 152,300 flat. As we come to monthly time frame, we see that wick happening. And now, again, the thought process is the chances are, since we have tapped into that resistance level and we are rejecting it, the chances are price is going to try to retrace a little bit in order to continue bullish. So that was one of the confirmations for that sell opportunity. Also, we just broke above an important resistance right here. So right above the candles, right about here, 148,300 flat. So right above this level where price keeps rejecting this as resistance, it also serves as support for this extended consolidation. And then here resistance again for almost a year. And price breaks above it, barely a bottom wick rejection. And this tells me that there was barely any sellers in the market. The buyers were still dominant and price finally pushed up, tapping into 152,300. Now we could potentially look for a small pullback in order to continue back bullish, but still in order to break that 152,300, we still need the strong fundamentals coming out of the UK. On the weekly time frame, we see that resistance being formed. Now that zone is being broken, so as I drop down to lower time frames, I want to see a retest of this zone in order for price to continue back down and for us to look for some sell opportunities. As I look to the left, I see that there's an overall average zone that price keeps tapping into over and over again. So exactly here, this is that support being formed for this entire consolidation. We see rejections right into this level here again. Candles closing, creating that resistance. Again, rejections. So this is what I'm targeting as my partial if price were to continue back down. But when the candles started forming, we started seeing that candles were losing volume and the market started to consolidate. So I ended up taking out my entire position here because I didn't want to be part of that consolidation. And if that consolidation continued for a couple of days, then I would just be accumulating swap fees. So I just took out the position, waited for price to break above the consolidation or below the consolidation to be part of the momentum on one side or the other. On the daily time frame, price breaking below the zone here, so consolidation on the daily time frame as well, right into that resistance. And so that is giving me confirmations as we're breaking the lows that we're looking for some nice sell opportunities. Here was another level that we identified right about here. And so here the thought process was, if price breaks below the zone and we get a retest right up top here, then we have a nice sell opportunity coming down into the 148,300 zone for about 200 pips. Then we also have another scaling opportunity. Let's say if we don't get a retest of this level, but we see some sort of retest or consolidation happening here, then we have another scaling opportunity or a sell opportunity for about 150 pips. Drop down to the 4-hour time frame, 4-hour breaks below the zone. Now we're looking for a retest. So we have a bottom wick rejection right into that zone, which was previously a resistance. So once that resistance is broken and retests as it is right here, then it becomes a support. So a rejection right into that support level, a bottom wick forming, and now we're looking for a pullback in order for price to continue back down bearish. We dropped to the 4-hour or to the 2-hour from the 4-hour time frame. Now we saw that price retested this, continues down. We're getting a rejection right into this level. And now we want to see another pullback respecting previous levels or high levels right here. So 151 level, or even 50% correction of this entire push down that we've been seeing. So 150.886 level was what was given out in the weekly outlook. So pretty much a 50% correction of this entire push down, which would be that support level. So anywhere price coming back down or coming back up to respect this and then continuing back down. And that's where our sell opportunity is. On the 30-minute time frame, another confirmation where price had a lot of volume to the downside. So whenever you see a lot of volume to the downside, regardless of the time frame, always know that there's going to be some correction. So we're looking for a correction of this entire move down, pull back right into this level, and then a continuation back down for better sell opportunities. So let's see how this played out. So price comes down, rejects this, consolidates a little bit, and then coming back to tap into this level. So it seems like the market is collecting orders. So you see a lot of consolidation happening on the 30-minute time frame. You go up to the 2-hour. You see that 2-hour was starting to lose momentum to the downside. It wasn't really breaking the lows or the highs. Even here, it kind of struggled to fill this huge wick to the downside. Comes here, creates a support, and it seems like it wants to continue back bullish. So consolidates here again. So now we have that first tap of rejection. Let's drop back down to the 30-minute time frame since that's where the entry was taken. So we have that first rejection of that zone, so correction right back into that area. And now we see that price is again struggling to break below the zone. So now if we get another tap right into this zone and we see some sort of resistance being formed here, then we know that price is going to continue down bearish because there are not enough buyers in the market that can push price back into the zone or above. So we saw a little bit of consolidation and then another resistance being formed. So as price started breaking down, the first entry was taken at 806 with the stop loss being at 151.05 and take profit 148.300. As you can see, almost 10 to 1 risk to reward. And now the thought process here is when I took the entry, as you'll see when the candles start forming, that we're getting the confirmations of resistance being formed here. We ultimately had a confirmation of a break and retest here. So it was pretty much, I had the confirmation that price was going to continue bearish, and this would be my partial opportunity. And as price retests and continues down, then I could look for another scaling opportunity here. So I did end up taking a scaling opportunity right above the level when I got that break and retest, but this was taken during the New York session. So we got that break and retest right there. So first resistance, second resistance, break and retest. Price is trying to continue back down bearish. Continues bearish. We get another break and retest. Continuation down with the next entry here. Same take profit level, 148.300. Entry at 150.551. And stop loss was 150. 150.66. So a 10 pip stop loss and almost 20 to 1 risk to reward, a little over 20 to 1 risk to reward. So price just continues down bearish with a lot of volume. We get another top wick rejection. A resistance being formed, continuation back down. Tapping into the zone. So as we're tapping into the zone, I'm looking into some partial opportunities. So I take a partial opportunity from the initial entry and then I move that to break even. So at this point from initial entry until now, I'm about 40 pips in. So taking partial from the first opportunity, still letting the second one kind of run a little bit more before moving to break even or looking for a partial just yet. So price comes back up, does the same exact thing that we've done in the past, creating resistance levels, and then as it drops back down, that's where I look for a partial level coming down for about 30 pips here. Partial here, move to break even, and taking another partial on the initial entry. So a lot of volume to the downside. I'm looking to the left, and we're pretty much clearing out of all this resistance levels and support levels and consolidations here to the left. So pretty much a meltdown at this point, and then about 70 to 80 pips in, I took another partial, and so this entire drop down so far has been about 172 pips. So as we started breaking below and tapping into this resistance and consolidation levels to the left, that's pretty much where I started taking some partial opportunities off of both entries and then started trailing my stop loss. So now my stop loss has been trailed for both entries down here, right underneath the zone. And here the thought process is that I'm still waiting for a pullback of this entire meltdown in order for me to look for another scaling opportunity. And if when price starts consolidating here, that's also when I start looking into, should I take partials or should I just close out the entire trade? And I ended up closing out the entire trade because, again, I did not want to be part of that consolidation that we'll see here shortly. So we see a pullback, we see consolidation, and then price continuing back down. So I look for another scale-in opportunity at 149.582. Take profit 148.300, and stop loss was set right above these candles here. So that break and retest here at 149.755. And this also is a 7-to-1 risk to reward. So you get another break and retest, confirmation for entry. As price is breaking below, tapping into the lows here, I'm looking for a partial from all three entries and then looking to move to break even. So breaks below at this point, I'm about 48 pips into profit from the third entry, about 144 pips into profit, 45 pips into profit from the second, and about 170 pips into profit from the first entry. And so at this point, I moved to break even and I trailed my stop loss even lower for the initial two entries. So as price starts to kind of die down here, I trail my stop loss and take some more partials from the third entry here. So at this point, as price starts to die down here, about 64 pips in is when I took another partial, and then I also trailed my stop loss even lower from the initial two entries and trailed my stop loss about here from the third entry. And now I'm looking at higher time frames, looking at some confirmation levels. Is price, in an extended sell as it is here on the 2-hour time frame and also on the 4-hour time frame. So now I'm looking for signs of exhaustion, and I'm also looking for price to create some sort of support in order to continue back bullish or some sort of consolidation. So at this point, I'm looking to pretty much take more risk off the table as price starts to retrace and create some support levels on the 30-minute time frame. So we continue down, and eventually I end up closing out about 222 pips in from initial entry. So a little bit further down is when I ended up closing out from the initial entry. Drop down. So about this level is when I ended up closing out my initial entry for 220 pips. And I took some more partials from the second entry, trailed my stop loss for both of these following entries. So second and third entry, trailed my stop loss a bit more lower. And at this point, it was around this level where we had that bottom wick rejection, also that top wick rejection. And now as price, I'm looking for signs of exhaustion here again, of consolidation, support being formed, because again, on the 2-hour and 4-hour time frames, price was pretty bearish, and I'm looking for a retracement of that movement. And that is when my trail stop loss was hit for both of them after taking partials down here. So this trade with the last partial ran for about 100 pips, came back and hit trail stop loss about 48 pips in, and the second entry running down for about almost 200 pips as well, 197 pips, and then trail stop loss being hit at about 146 pips. And so that's how I took 220 pips from the initial entry with two more scale-ins in a matter of first entry being up top there. So in a matter of about a day and a half.